Good morning. Today, we hear about the cost of discipleship. We hear about renouncing our possessions. We hear about wisdom, and we hear about how to conduct ourselves safely and how to even number our days aright so that we may gain wisdom. Undoubtedly, you've seen the display of crosses on our property here today, and that is a subject which is kind of unusual in that the most vulnerable in our society are the ones without a voice. And yet, look what we've said. Look what we've communicated by this. They indeed have a voice, and we've been able to express that. Now, the church teaches that all life is sacred from conception to natural death, and that includes anything in between, because the most vulnerable of us are those who are located in the chronic ill, the aged, the unborn, the mentally ill, those who are unable to function in society the way that standard says we should. This is a wide spectrum. And so today I want to talk about a very small component of that. I want to talk about those who can't properly express themselves. And in order to do this, so that it can't be dismissed, diluted, or perhaps even rejected, I'm going to list a story from my own life. I'm going to tell a story about a certain summer that happened about 50 years ago, 52 years ago actually, so forgive me if my memory is just a little bit foggy. It involves my mother, and my mother was one of 5 children who was born a little over 100 years ago. And my mother was born into a society, into a group that had certain expectations, and of course she fulfilled those. My mother had 8 pregnancies, 8 of them. That's a lot. That was pretty good. All of those, most of those, were actually to term. Now, the thing that I couldn't reconcile is why there were only 3 of us, if she had 8. And there was also a large gap between my sister and I, 16 years. Now, it includes an older brother who is about 4 years younger than I. And so there are a lot of unanswered questions. And as you can imagine, this had an impact on my mother. I can't remember really many times when my mother was jovial, was able to speak clearly, and was able to carry a conversation with us in a way that we could relate to as kids, or that would actually help us as we were growing up. So in a lot of senses, she was the more vulnerable of us. Roles were reversed, and it happens. When this happens, we always take on the role of caregiver, and I think that's a natural instinct. Now, one particular year, she was depressed, and this depression actually was deeper than the rest. Even at 16, I was not quite 16 yet, I knew that it was different because she couldn't get out of it, and it got worse and worse. And ultimately, she sank into a very deep depression and required hospitalization. Well, if you can imagine 50 years ago, yes, they knew some things about how to treat people with mental illness, those with chronic depression. However, it took a long time for them to be able to reach through. And so my mother was away for about 3 months. And when she came back, she was different. And you might think, well, how so? I can tell you this. When she came back home that day, we started talking, and we started speaking about things that normally you don't, conversations that had substance in them. We talked about the things that we need to say, because I knew that the window was limited and time was limited. And so, understanding that those days were numbered, I just grabbed every single conversation I could. We talked, oh my gosh, long days and into the weeks. And as the time grew, the window started to close, and she became more withdrawn. And ultimately, she became completely withdrawn again, to the extent where we only had few conversations over the years that were really deep. But I have to tell you this, I am so grateful to modern psychiatric medicine, psychotherapy, and what was done in order to bring her that far. I am grateful that I had the conversation of a lifetime. And that's something that happened because somebody who is extremely vulnerable occasionally got the treatment that they required, and the benefits, well, they were numerous. They were unending. The second part about approaching the vulnerable, and remember, Jesus commands us to do that because this is discipleship. But in our gospel today, Jesus tells us that we have to count the cost of discipleship. For when we approach those who are vulnerable, who in Matthew's gospel are known as the least of these, when we stand up for somebody who doesn't have a voice, when we work for their good, frankly, when we when we pursue the ultimate good of the other simply for their own good, that's discipleship. And I think you all know it ain't easy. And so I guess I just wanted to close with this. If what we're going to do increases the dignity of the human person, if it is life-giving, if it can advance even the smallest thing, you never know what benefits will come from it. You could, in fact, have the conversation of a lifetime. In our parish, we do many things for the vulnerable. What we've done out here is simply a display, is a communication. We do more than this. We send meals when people are grieving. We knit blankets and even small cloths that the stillborn are wrapped in when they arrive for the short time that they have with us. We knit caps for people who have cancer. And we do other things. Some of them you'll see, you will be hearing about in this next few weeks as we approach Respect Life Month. But I wanted you to see that within our own lives and within our own midst, the highly vulnerable are there, and they're always waiting, and they have something beautiful to say to us. Let's listen. Amen.